And welcome back to the Hotline. We are talking the Azerbaijan preview, or the Baku preview, if you will, as the championship is now getting into the business end. The Constructors is quite close. The drivers, not so much. Many questions to be answered come the weekend. So the Azerbaijan preview. Here is the times, at least for the UK. The race starting at 11 o'clock in the morning, bit of an early one, qualifying the day before. So the race on the 15th of September, qualifying between 12 and 1 o'clock live on the 14th. And then practice 1 and 2 on the Friday the 13th. Yeah, unlucky for some. 9:30 till 10:30 and 1 o'clock till 2 o'clock for practice 2. Practice 3 on Saturday morning before qualifying at 8:30 till 9:30, plus an hour for your European time. But I would also like to get into not a blank page, but very much the Drivers' Championship here. So let's just close up a tiny bit more. I mean, we've got Verstappen leading Norris. Now, significantly, it's only by 303 points to 241. That is quite close, isn't it? Then we have, 60-odd points. Big question to be asked. We'll ask that in a minute. And it's Leclerc for Ferrari, 217. Not completely out the running for the driver's title, but yeah, probably. Then we have Piastri, Sainz, Hamilton, Perez. Yeah, Perez all the way back, 143. And then it's Russell, and then Alonso and Stroll. We'll get into the others in a bit. But if we want to go for the Constructors, that I can assure you is a lot closer. As we have here, Red Bull on 446. McLaren Mercedes on 438. Rarely have I seen it this close in the last few years at this point in the championship. And let's not forget, Ferrari have, once again, a fairly okay chance at winning that championship if we have Monza levels of skill incoming. Very, very much so. So let's get into the actual track itself, shall we? So the Baku track. Yes, the Baku track indeed. Let's have a drive of it, shall we? This time I did do a slightly different setup in relation to how we drove around the track. As you can see, we are very much on the front wing. We're just about to enter the last part of the circuit. I've now very much disappeared. So this is kind of like the last breaking point corner that is going to be kind of tested now, because it's absolutely flat out all the way down, essentially through, to turn 1. So it's full bananas in these cars, despite the turns. It don't really mean too much, do they? But as we come in now, we are going to have DRS. This is the first DRS zone out of the 2 that we are going to have here, and we need to brake here. Sometimes you get 3, 4 abreast into that first corner, and once again, on the power, short straight, getting ready for the second DRS. We don't normally see much passing here. We see people getting closer. But yeah, it's not quite one at a time. We have seen cars side by side, but it's normally into that turn 1 as we brake again, as you can see the racing line, and put the power down. Yeah, very much right angle after right angle at the moment, but I promise you it is going to change as we go through old Azerbaijan, old Baku in a bit, through the castle. And I tell you what, one of the points here as we go through this fairly tight chicane, there are tighter ones, is this is one of my favourite bits on the calendar coming up, because it's the thinnest, I think it's the thinnest part of the track in any track on the calendar here, as we go between almost like the castle there and the right and then the left as we come now. We're very much down the second half of the lap, down the hill, and quite fast again, setting up. You want to now get really close to that car in front if you can, because as we brake here and turn, we've only got one proper braking zone left, and it's the one downhill here just before we started the actual race itself. On the power, you want to get on the power a bit better than I did, and here we go again. So you will be getting a slipstream here. It is the longest, yes, it's a turn, but in all sense and purposes for the car, it's pretty much a straight, isn't it? Let's be honest. On the DRS to hopefully pass the car in front, take the lead, maybe. That'd be interesting. We have seen battles for the lead here. If we go all the way back in 2021, you could make an argument that Lewis Hamilton really did himself no favours for the 2021 championship when he just went he just carried on, didn't he? Brake magic, he outbraked himself in the first corner after beating Sergio Perez to the start. That would have been a full 25 points and very likely a World Championship victory for dear old Lewis. But there we go. I will take the track guide off now. So before we get into the actual drivers and all their stories coming in, I wanted to tell you a few interesting stats. So the circuit length in terms of kilometres is 6. The race length is 306 kilometres in total. There's 51 laps, 20 turns. The circuit was first opened in 2016, which ended up being quite a boring race. 7 races held here. Track record of a 140.494 in 2019 by Valtteri Bottas, but a lap record of a 143 by Charles Leclerc, who, all for all intents and purposes, probably should have been on pole that year. He wasn't. He what can I say? He really enjoys that thin part of the track. Very much so, doesn't he? But so Sergio Perez, though, interesting, is the only repeat winner. So from the first 6 races, there were no repeat winners. Rosberg won the first event here. Ricciardo took an unexpected victory in 2017. It was Lewis's in 2018 after Valtteri Bottas had an unfortunate puncture. But Valtteri Bottas came back in 2019. And then it was Sergio Perez in 21. And Max Verstappen won in 22. Perez finally became the track's double winner when he took that victory in 2023. Now, in terms of nations, Mexico then, clearly, by default almost, has the most wins. Everyone else is Germany, Australia, Britain, Finland, Netherlands, each have just that one victory. But it could change, isn't it? We've got Lando Norris potentially winning. George Russell potentially up there. And so Lewis Hamilton. Could Britain add another one? Could Dutch, Netherlands, Holland add another one? I guess we'll see. Nico Rosberg was the first winner at the track and the only former winners of a race at Baku circuit not presently on the F1 grid. He left that year, didn't he? And he's the only driver, though, to record a Grand Slam, having done so at the 2016 European Grand Prix when it was called then. So Red Bull, though, they do have the most wins at the track. Azerbaijan, bearing in mind Sergio Perez, they did take their 4th victory. The team was previously tied with Mercedes, who'd have 3. So that's not too bad at all. So Red Bull looking good, but how are looking good for this particular race? We'll get into that. 3 1-2 finishes have been recorded. Mercedes became the first team with a 1-2 finish in 2019, a year in which they also became the first team to record victories at the circuit in successive years. But Max Verstappen is the man that holds the largest win margin. In 2022, a victory of 20.8 seconds. The smallest was in 2021, Sergio Perez, by just 1.3 seconds. Bearing in mind, I think, it was 1 lap or 2 laps, wasn't it, after the red flag. But 5 of the 7 Grand Prix at the Baku circuit have been won by less than 5 seconds. From the 7 races here, the average win margin, though, is 6.9 seconds. So, that's not too bad at all. But let's get into the drivers, shall we? And we're not going to do championship order. I guess we'll just do an order, starting very much with Haas. But before I do that, I'm just going to stop the absolute roller coaster that is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and let's start with someone you may be familiar with, Oli Bearman. Yes, he currently is a Ferrari Academy driver, but this man very much driving for the Haas team this weekend is Oli Bearman. It's going to be really interesting to see, because we're kind of spoiled in a way, to see Oli Bearman versus Nico Hülkenberg and how both of them stack up and how Oli Bearman stacks up driving a car that's potentially not the best. Yes, this man here, he won't be at Azerbaijan. At least he won't be racing at Azerbaijan, but it's Hülkenberg who will. Pressure on Hülkenberg. He's going to really want to... He does not... Bear in mind, at the moment, he's the only driver that's been signed for Audi. He's not going to want to be shown up by the Bearmeister, is he? Absolutely. So, these guys here, Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, please just score a point so we can stop talking about it. Every time we do a race preview, it almost gets into boring levels because all we do is talk about Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu. Ricciardo, he had an okay... I mean, he was looking good in Italy. Hopefully, he's won here before. Could he get points? He's been looking better than Tsunoda in the second half of the season overall. So you have to think more of the same from Ricciardo. But I still can't help but feel he needs to bury Tsunoda for Red Bull to actually take notice. And equally, Tsunoda needs to stop that happening from Daniel Ricciardo. These are two talented individuals at different ends of their career. Essentially, Tsunoda Not quite the rookie at the moment, though, but he really wants to become one of the established people. And he does that. He does need to do that by beating Daniel Ricciardo. Colapinto, yes, we finally got a card for him. A stunning debut, I think, in Italy. He didn't do too bad at all. To the point where he did, on his debut, I think he did better than most of Logan Sargent's races. In terms of pace, etc. Didn't make the big mistake that Kimi Antonelli did in FP1. Yes, he did kind of go off a bit, but he didn't slam it into the scenery. So, 1 point to him over the Mercedes protege. So I think more of the same. Baku, a more difficult circuit. Yes, but he should know it anyway. He knows it. So it could be interesting. And Alexander Albon, more of the same from him. I mean, that Williams now, with the way they're setting up the car, they've said since the beginning of the year that their car has been overweight, which has been a massive issue for them. So as their car develops towards the end of the season, and as we get into 2025, I'm expecting better things. But what's going to happen to both Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly? I mean, they are kind of like, they remind me of like a lesser, a wish version of Mercedes last year, to the point where when they come to a weekend, you absolutely do not know where they are. They're going to be really, really struggling. Could they be up there? They might knock somebody out in the top 10 and be surprised. That is the issue with both Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. So, once again, I've no idea where they are. I think they'll be somewhere around the echelons of the top 10. I would be surprised if they get into Q3. Having said that, all it takes is for someone not to get their setup absolutely right. Lance Stroll. Well, what's interesting about Aston Martin is I think no one's talking about the drivers going into Azerbaijan, but we are definitely talking about the fact that Adrian Newey is set to be signed by Aston Martin to, by the time we get to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. There are rumours it could be the 9th, 10th, it could be the 12th of September, who knows. But the signing is supposedly imminent. And now we get to the big one. Yes, McLaren. What are they going to do? Everyone says if you are a serious team, you want team orders for Lando Norris. He's more realistic. Gonna close that big gap. But Piastri was like, no. Some people have suggested, is it because Mark Webber is his manager? It may well be. I mean, let's be fair, Mark Webber was not happy about being number 2 to Sebastian Vettel, and he was treated, let's be fair, in the cold light of day. Yes, you have to take his biography with a pinch of salt. However, he was treated unfairly, I think. I'm quite confident in saying that compared to Sebastian Vettel, and he just wants fairness for Oscar Piastri. The concern is he bows to Lando now, and is that going to be for the rest of his career? Hopefully not, when we know how good Oscar Piastri is. But I do feel that Lando Norris is going to need Oscar if he even has a sniff of a chance at that World Championship. Now, McLaren, probably favourites now for the Constructors, everyone is saying. There are rumours that Red Bull have found something, so they could be competitive again down at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku. But Helmut Marko has supposedly come out and said, no, they've admitted they've almost, if you believe the rumours, almost forget that the Red Bull Constructors were all in for Max's Drivers' Championship, which is at threat, which is interesting. The other interesting thing is, how fast is Ferrari going to be? After arguably being the fastest car in Monza, this is a different circuit. It does have those long straights. We know the Ferrari likes its street circuits. Hello, Monaco. We know the Ferrari was good on last year at Azerbaijan. It was fast on one lap, although it chewed its tyres up. It was also fast last year at Singapore, another street circuit. So that's why I think it's going to get really interesting, because once again, we go into a weekend where there are 4 teams that can gun for a win. Some say 7 drivers, minus Perez as well. Maybe a bit mean, but we know Sergio Perez does well here. To the point where we'll get into that in a bit, because let's talk about the Mercedes pair. Been a bit lackluster, haven't they, since the summer break? Finished kind of on a high, and then meh. And they've threatened to do well. Both George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, they've threatened to do well, but they haven't, have they? They've flattered to deceive. Is that the right way? I always get things like that the wrong way. So, once again, it's going to be a mystery to where they're going to be. They're going to be in the mix. It's just where in the mix are they going to be? Yes, you can pass here. But Sergio Perez, I think this is the big test for Sergio Perez, because we know he likes the circuit. He has won here twice. The first time a bit lucky in terms of he got a shocky, he was going to be beaten by Max Verstappen, who had a puncture. The red flag came out. And then it was very much, he got beat on the line comfortably by Lewis Hamilton, who then completely messed up. But by all sense and purposes. You've got to be there to win it. And the year he beat Max Verstappen, he matched him absolutely and beat Max Verstappen at his own game. It was very commendable from Sergio Perez. But this is where the pressure comes. We're going to be expecting that. If that Red Bull is good, if Verstappen's anywhere near that pole position, Sergio Perez was going to have to be within a couple of tenths at least, or on Max's pace. And that's what's going to be interesting. So what's Max going to do? And this is it. He can afford risks because he's 60 points ahead in the championship. Lando Norris can't, but Lando Norris needs to go for the risks. But what Max can't afford, if he's not racing Lando, if he's racing someone like a George Russell, a Lewis Hamilton, a Charles Leclerc, a Carlos Sainz, they're not going to care about no championship. They're just going to want the win. So if he is in the pack, that is going to be a risk. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he goes about it. And by Max's own admission, even he is saying that the World Championship, both championships, are currently at threat. So that's pretty much it then for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Stay with us throughout the week. We will be having updates after practice, qualifying, and of course the race. We will no doubt be speaking to you soon. Give us a like if you can. If you like this, give us a subscribe. That'd be great. Hit that notification button if you don't want to miss a video. Stay safe, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much.